Yeah, so so a little bit about myself. So I graduated from UC Santa Cruz, home of the banana slugs. That was a true, that's our mascot. Actually, fun fact, in fourth grade, I kissed a banana slug because my camp counselor said it'd be good luck. And I think that's how I ended up there. But I graduated with a business management and economics degree. And I would say I started my professional career really like my junior spring quarter. I was really lost with like trying to figure out what I want to do. Went to a career fair, met this recruiter named Robin, did this Ross Dress for Us leadership internship during the summer, realized throughout the whole journey, and was still super supportive even though I didn't really want to be a store manager. And so that's kind of where I put two and two together, that I wanted to become a recruiter. So all senior year, I just coffee chatted, figure out different ways to figure out how to get into the talent realm. And so there's two ways that I figured out, is either going the coordination route or going to an agency. And I actually was supposed to go to an agency when I graduated, but long story short, there's some miscommunications with the hiring manager and it fell through. But that's why I'm a really big believer. It's not rejection, it's redirection. And it redirected me to my role today. So I started as a candidate experience operations coordinator on site at Google via my agency, Nelson Staffing, where I hosted candidates that came on site to Google. And then 4 months in, I transitioned to become a recruiter coordinator, where I scheduled for software engineers. And then later I did leadership. So I scheduled for eng managers. And 2 weeks ago, I just landed my new position where I'm now an online candidate specialist, where I screen resumes and I'm part of the finance pod. It's been a very amazing journey. It still feels so unreal where I am, but I'm very thankful and I'm very excited to continue down the talent path.
Thank you so much for that. I think the banana slug it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt, what about you? How did you get here? What was your path like?
So graduated San Francisco, which was really cool. Met a lot of great people. Did a lot of networking. I'm huge on LinkedIn networking. Reaching out like before doing these like candidate kind of panelist interviews and whatnot and talks. Like really like doing your research on the candidate, seeing if there's like any any anything you can relate to on their end, and like trying to see more about them, and really just making like humanistic kind of interactions with people, right? Like really taking the time to get to know someone, their path, not necessarily like how can they help me in this moment, just like making the connection. Like if something pops up, it makes it them 10 times more likely to like keep you in mind. And it's benefited me by like huge degree. Like I started at Genentech as a reimbursement specialist, so in insurance and reimbursement for patients. That's kind of where I found my passion, really working and like helping patients not have to go through so much more stress than what they're already going through with whatever disease that they're going through, that they're enduring. Um, I had reached out to someone, my current manager at Google, and he had just posted something about a job, and I just reached out and made the humanistic connection, and like told him what I was passionate about, gave him my resume, asked if there was anything that like he was like having trouble finding or accomplishing throughout the day. And that really led to a quick meeting with him and I. And it just went from there. Like he could see the hunger and the passion. Coming out of college, you're not necessarily have that experience. I worked a little bit in sales, but he could see the hunger and the passion that I had to like learn new things. That was formable. So that's my path pretty much.
Thank you. I read somewhere that instead of asking people for things, like when you're making a connection, you should really aim to like look at that person as a human, be their friend before you go out and then ask for a referral. So that was really valuable advice for sure.
Exactly. And being able to show like a project you've worked on, like if you know their area of expertise, like being able to show something that you've worked on that like also relates, or you can potentially relate to it. That's another big thing.
Thank you so much for that. What about you, Brian? What was your journey like? How did you get here?
Yeah, thanks for asking, and I'm grateful to be here. My path was pretty untraditional. I have typical Asian parents, and they want you to either be a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer, right? Or even a pharmacist for my case. And I felt very lost in college. I didn't really know what to do. I was pretty on the fence about it, and my parents told me I needed to get a degree, and so I went through this process, and I chose microbiome. But I knew, like, in reality, I was always like a sales business type of person, but I kept that to myself. So the last year of college, I basically went into a microbiome lab, and I started realizing that, hey, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be working with bacteria. I want to be talking to people, right? I want to be making connections like I was doing in college. So I had the opportunity to kind of start my own business, drop shipping, with the help of my cousin. I did that for about 3 to 4 years, and I was able to make a decent income. On the fourth year, it didn't really pan out to what I expected business to be, but I really got out that what if, right? So I wanted to be my own business owner, and I got to do that. But I know that the first business that you create isn't always going to be the most successful, but it was a learning lesson. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and I knew I didn't want to work in a traditional like 9 to 5, like, or a finance company or anything like that. I definitely know that times are tough right now, so things can be a little bit different, but I just wanted something different. And one of my best friends recommended me to join tech. And this is about 4 years ago. And he recommended me join Always Hired tech sales bootcamp. I was kind of reluctant because I felt like I didn't want to go into sales exactly right away. I wanted to go into recruiting initially, but he said, you know what, you have nothing to lose right now. It's a tough market, but at least with this, you'll gain some credibility and insight into the tech industry. So I said, oh, you're right. So I went through that boot camp, and after a couple months of sourcing for my job and just getting the certification, I was able to join. My first company was Demand Force as an SDR, a sales development rep, and I just made 70 to 80 cold calls every single day. And it was a grind, but they taught me so much foundationally on what it takes to actually be successful in tech. And that experience kind of transferred over into my next opportunity after that. So after a year, I landed a job at Uber Eats. And this is the part where I want to kind of emphasize. When Uber Eats reached out to me after I was hitting about a year in Demand Force, it was a slight pay cut for me. It's about a 20% pay cut, and I know that's tough to sometimes stomach because you always want to progress in your career. But I decided, after talking to some peers and one of my other friends that worked there, he said, you know what, you get that Uber brand name, you get to work with business professionals, and you can take a different direction with your career. I said, you know what, I'm willing to take that chance. So I took that chance. 2 to 3 months into the career, I was offered an opportunity from a college connection um, that allowed me to go into tech sourcing. And that's my foot into the recruiting realm that basically doubled my income from there. So it was a slight step back for a major comeback. And I think I really appreciate all the things I've learned at the different places, plus all the networking I did. So I think that's truly invaluable. And that experience catapulted me to this opportunity with Google now. So really grateful to have met all those people and carried all those experiences to this day right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
Mhm.
I wanted to touch on one thing you mentioned. You mentioned that you started doing a lot of cold calls. As we handle this panel and talk about tips and tricks for our students, whether they're applying for internships or applying for jobs, I think a key thing to getting into this role is learning to deal with rejection. So do you have any advice on that, since you handled a lot of cold calls and we will be getting rejected a lot?
Yeah, don't take it personally. Every no leads you closer to a yes, truly. And it's like for me like asking a girl out, right? You're gonna get rejected, but if you keep asking enough, the numbers will just naturally come and you get better at it, right? You gain the confidence and you gain the knowledge of, you know, how to navigate a conversation, how to feel them out, and you become like a people person after that. So foundationally, I think cold calling really, really helped me out. So that's my advice.
Do you
I
have
always
any?
steered, I always steered away from those cold calling jobs.
Oh yeah, I didn't know I was gonna be cold calling either. I mean, 70, 80
Yeah.
calls and getting rejected. Who wants to go through that? Come on.
Do you have any advice on how to deal with rejection, Wyatt?
Yeah, I mean, it stings at first. Like the first time you get rejected, you know, the 100th time you get rejected, it just really, it wasn't the job for you. You know, you make the humanistic connection. You know, you did everything right. You know that you bring a value to the job, to the company, to whatever it is. And I was denied, you know, at least like 50 times. I got a few, you know, callbacks, you know, will this work for us? Will it work for me? And like the connections that I've made. Sometimes no, you know, like sometimes like I rejected them and it was just not the right fit for you. So like if you come into those situations and you know you get rejected and you're feeling down, like always remember like you have so much value. Like what you bring to the table, you know you do. Like you know what you bring to the table, and don't ever settle, and like don't ever let someone tell you like that, you know, it was you that they didn't want. Like it just, you know, just wasn't the right fit. There's thousands and thousands of candidates, and you know, you're going to be once you get the one that you like, once you strive for something and you actually get the job that you wanted, it'll make all the difference in the world. You know, I could have been an SDR, I could have been an FSR, it could have been so many different things, and it just wasn't right. And I'm in love with the job that I have now, and like everything worked out the way it was supposed to work out. So keep on pushing.
Thank you so much for that. Sarah, do you have any experience with that as well that you'd like to add?
Oh my gosh, I love what everyone says. It's a mindset. I think a lot of times, like we forget, you know, like during interviewing, we get so scared because we're like, we want this company to like us. We want them to accept us. But we also forget, like, we're interviewing this company as well. There are thousands of companies. And I think as Wyatt mentioned, you have to know your value, because that's one thing that you can hold to for yourself is like the value you bring to a company. And I always like to say, if it's not now, then it's later, right? Like it's just experience. And like, as my mentors always tell me, everything does work out. So like, as I was saying previously, like when I got, I guess you could say, rejected from this agency where I thought this was my direction out of college, you know, what I could have done is I could have sulked. I could have been like, why did this happen to me? But instead I took that kind of rejection and I saw it as, okay, like, I know what I want. I want to become a recruiter. I want to enter the talent field. What can I do to get there? So I hauled my ass. I told myself I get a job in a month. I networked out. I probably was applying to 5 jobs a day, reaching out to 10 people a day. And it helped land me. That's why I'm a big believer. It's not rejection, it's redirection. And it redirected me into this position. And now thinking a year later, I'm so much happier than I would have been at that previous job. And sometimes you don't know why things happen, right? You think about like, oh, why did this happen to me? But trust me, later down the road, you're going to see why that got redirected elsewhere. And something that else my mentor has told me is there's certain things we can't control in life, right? Like those things like rejections, all that stuff, we can't control that. But what you can control is your perspective and what you do next with it, right? So never let anyone tell you that you're not worth it. You know your value. And especially with networking out, it can be scary, and you're going to get loads of people who don't respond to you until you get a job, and then they call back being like, hey, how are you doing? But I think it's really important to remember is there's people who are going to help you and there's people who aren't, right? So why are you so fixated on people who don't want to talk to you? There's millions of people on LinkedIn, 625 million plus people. So trust me, you're going to find someone who wants to talk to you. It really just depends on you.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. And I see people dropping their LinkedIn in the chat. Absolutely do that, guys. Connect with each other, connect with our panelists. We're all here to learn, grow, and help each other out. So absolutely. I will be answering, I will be heading the Q&A after our panel. So definitely feel free to add your questions to the chat and we will get to them. So as we're starting our panel, thank you guys again so much for that. I wanted to touch on the majority of our attendees are current students who will be graduating and looking to lock down their jobs. And is first, and how was that experience for you? So Wyatt, I will start with you.
I never really did any internships. I worked in a sales, electrical sales, and and then I and whenever you want, like it doesn't hurt your resume, like it. Any sort of experience is the best experience, honestly.
Yes, absolutely. Sarah, what about you? Did you have any internships while you were in school?
Yes, sorry, I was typing the comment.
Thank you so much. I love how active the chat is. Thank you, everyone.
So yeah, my first internship, so I actually started working when I was 16 years old at this cafe in my hometown. And so that was my first internship when I hit college. Instead of doing like takeout and cashier, I kind of made my own internship doing kind of HR department upstairs, like learning a little bit more on the admin stuff. But then I would say my first official was the Ross Dress for Less leadership internship. I was learning to become a store manager, and it was a great experience. And I think Wyatt touches it really importantly, right? Like I did not start my professional journey until probably after that internship, where I really realized that I wanted to become a recruiter. I think sometimes we put so much pressure onto ourselves. So like, we have to know what we're going to do, like after graduating from 4 years, like I have to do it in this degree, but we're so young, like especially after undergrad, you are so young. So it's okay to go with changes. It's okay not to know your journey, but I think it's always important to remember is follow your passion. So what I was following is I love helping people. That's how I knew I wanted to become a recruiter. And this might change in like 5-10 years. Maybe I'll want to become a manager or something, but I'm just following my passion. Like I can't tell you where I'm going to be later down the road, but I just know that I want to go. I'm just following every journey as it goes. And if it changes, I'm going to allow that to happen, right? I'm not going to be hard on myself of like, oh, I wish I knew this earlier. Because I always believe, like, how are you supposed to know what you want to do if you haven't done it, right? And as Wyatt was mentioning, experience, there's no such bad thing as like, there's no bad, okay, what is that? How do you say that? Every experience is good because I worked like 3 jobs during college. I was an ambassador. And honestly, when I was doing my interview for my role, when I first started, I actually didn't talk about my Ross Dress for Less experience, even though that was my internship. I talked about my school experience. I talked about being Amazon Prime student ambassador, where I had to like come up with events and like speak to over 400 people in a classroom to talk about Amazon Prime. And that was experience that I feel like really catalyzed me to getting my role today. So it's okay not to have an internship. Like what you're doing currently, like you guys are doing so much, especially in school, juggling your work-life balance and then your school life balance. So utilize that. Like there's really no bad experience. So I think it's all about talking about the transferable skills and what you learned from each during an interview. That's going to really help you shine. So really know your story.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. Definitely, as since I'm like a POW officer, I am also taking Business 300. I don't know if anyone else is taking Business 300 right now, the GORE class, but that is all about, how to communicate with businesses or in a professional business setting. And I can say for sure, I have been doing that as I'm communicating with you, Brian, or with you, Sarah, or with you, Wyatt. Like that is me in action right now, instead of like doing it in class. So I'm gaining so much from just like being in student leadership. So that's also, if you can't get experience in an internship, definitely reach out to your student orgs. There are so many opportunities there. So as we head into that, since we just spoke about that, so looking back and knowing what you know today, would you have done anything differently? I know you had a bit of an untraditional path, Brian. So what would you say to your younger self or to an audience of younger people who are still in college?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly to wrap up what we just talked about as well. I was just in the breakout room, and sometimes I believe someone mentioned how they may not be good enough for a real job and they wanted the internship instead. I said, no, like you definitely are good enough. Be more confident in yourself. You deserve both like the real opportunity and the internship. So don't like disqualify yourself right off the bat like that. And speaking in regards to a person with like no or little to no experience, I think if you analyze your process, a lot of you guys are already recruiters. A lot of you guys are marketers. You guys just don't realize it. You're posting on social media. I post 5 to 10 times a day, and you can basically say you're a marketer. What do you post, right? Like if you're reaching out to people, like I got reached out to, you're recruiting already. So don't think you're not, recruiting or you're not good enough. You're making connections on LinkedIn. So if you analyze your own process, there is actually elements that employers are looking for. You just have to verbalize it on your LinkedIn, on your resume, right? Even the interview process in itself is a skill set. Applied to 20 jobs in any given day, resulted in 5 phone screens, resulted in 1 offer, right? Knowing these stats, you're very analytical. So yeah, I wish I was, what I would tell my old self is just analyze my process more, find a mentor, start networking with people that have done it, right? That are in the position that you want to be in. And that would speed up your time to ramp up to that position. So, yeah.
Speaking of mentorship opportunities, that is super important as we're looking at maybe what's a good fit for us. I know a lot of us here are general business majors, and that can be such a broad field that you're like, I don't know where I fit in. Do you guys have any advice on how to reach out to someone? Because I know a lot of us can get pretty nervous about doing that. Wyatt, let's start with you.
The question was around how to reach out to people.
Yes. How do you
Okay.
go about just
So I don't know who's a student at SFSU, but if I was going to give any recommendation on a class to take, it would be John Sullivan's HR class. It's probably the best class I ever took. I have slide decks that I can send everyone. I could probably try to drop it in or send it on an email about how to like fill out your resume or fill out your LinkedIn. Sending messages. Like what really works for me is I think I talked about it a little bit, and like it's like making the human connection. Reviewing someone's profile. Are they a good fit for me? Can they like help mentor me? Like, and that's pretty much the question. Like, oh, he's retired? No, he was the best. He was a piece of work, but he was so cool. Sorry, I'm like reading the comments. Reaching out to someone, really finding like what you have to offer them, but also like how you can learn from their journey as well, right? Learning from their expertise, asking them to be your mentor, asking them just to like review your resume, who they can put you in contact with once you've like established that relationship with them. It really helps just be their friend, like just make that humanistic connection that sparks so many conversations. And like people reach out to me all the time. Hey, White, can you help me with this? Do you have any opportunities that you can point my way? The market is so dry. I can't find a job. It's been a year and a half, and I'm graduating or whatever it is. I rarely I'll look at your profile, and if I don't see anything that like pokes out at me like from your profile alone, I can't help. Like I don't know you. I'm getting so many messages. Really just take the time to just introduce yourself, tell them about yourself. It really goes back to building that relationship, because that's what got me where I'm at. So I am all about the relationships. It's my number
that's
one
really
tip.
Yes, I was just speaking to one of our past panelists last semester, and also something to touch on that you were saying is sometimes I get a little bit nervous about like, how do you even ask someone to be your mentor? Like, I don't know, like that seems like such a big role in someone's life. And so one really a good tip that he gave me was, don't even mention it. Whenever you just ask someone for help, you at the end you can just be like, thank you so much for mentoring me. So and then you're kind of like establishing that, and you don't even have to like actually ask the direct question, would you be my mentor? Maybe they're just like helping you on a project, and at the end you can just say, thank you so much for mentoring me on this project, I appreciate your help. And then you kind of just like start establishing that. Do you have—
That's right.
Right, absolutely. Do you have anything that you would like to add to that, Sarah?
Yeah, I just want to add +1 to that, Val. I think sometimes, when we look at mentorships, we're like, oh my gosh, like I want to put a label on it. I want this person to be my mentor. How do I go about asking that? You don't. Like, it's a relationship. Like, let it grow organically. And like over time, you're going to figure out this person is someone you look up to and kind of is like a role model. And I don't think label of like, can you please be my mentor? Because over time, as you're doing more coffee chats, you will develop that relationship. And it takes time, but that's how a relationship is. And I think too, like when you're reaching out to someone, please, please, please reach out with the generosity that you want to get to learn about this person and you want to get to know them, because I can't tell you enough how I get reached out. Hey, like, here's my resume, if there's any role. And Google just has thousands of like just different roles open. So, and there's so many people and so many people applying, like it's so much to ask one person when I don't know you. It's not that I don't want to help, that it shows to me that you have really figure out what you want, right? And so when you reach out, really reach out to learn. Like I always like to say this saying, I made a post about it. It's like, you to borrow $100, right? Like ask a stranger to borrow $100. What are they going to say? Likely no, right? That's because you haven't established trust. You haven't established a foundation to it. So it's kind of like the same thing with like referrals, like asking strangers. Networking, thinking of it as a short-term gain. Like networking is a long-term relationship, and people that you've talked to a year ago may help you a year later, right? But I think if you're looking at is like, I am going to talk to this person because this person is going to help me to get to here, you're not networking. And I feel like there's no secret, what do you call that? Like the secret to how do you get to where you are? I think it really is dedication and hard work, and just being able to, I always like to say with success, it's not like you put in all this hard work and it happens. It's you keep going. And when that opportunity arises, because it is part luck as well, you're prepared for it and then it just shoots up, right? So going with networking as well, I think if you're nervous to network out, try going with like mutual connections. So such as, for example, POW, like if you guys attended this meeting today, just say like, reach out to someone, say, hey, like I saw you were in the POW. I would love to chat. You're a fellow SFU, San Francisco State University student. I'd love just to learn more about yourself. Like that already, you have that common connection. Or if you look through on LinkedIn, you can see people have mutual friends. Maybe ask your friend to do a warm introduction. And I guarantee you, I was so scared to network because I would just think like, oh my gosh, like this person to help me, or how can I ask them to just take time out of their day to tell me their story. But you'd be surprised. A lot of people like really do want to help, but it's how you reach out. So just be careful with your tone of it, because I think a lot of times, especially with talent, I realize a lot of people forget that, as recruiters, we are human. Yes, we're here to help, but I think a lot of times people just like forget that as recruiters, like we still care about that human connection. Like, that's why we care so much about the candidate experience. So remember that when you're reaching out.
Hi, how are you? Do you have any good mentorship experiences?
Yeah, I love where this conversation is going. And honestly, I don't have a personal mentor like that I know on a deeper level, like a personal connection. But throughout the years, my biggest mentors were audiobooks, YouTube channel, right? Like these people that just started, like starting motivational speaking, inspirational speaking. Gary Vee is a big motivation. And to tie everything back together, mentor, even though I don't know him personally, he always says, bring value first before you ask, right? He has this book called Jab, Jab, Right Hook, I think, which is just like, give a lot of value to the other person. We're always thinking about what we can get. Why don't you think about what you can do for others? And then once you build that relationship up, it'll come naturally. They'll feel obligated, like, wow, I have to help this other person. I want to help you. You've helped me so much, right? So I think that's the best thing, video influencer. Yeah, definitely. So there's so much good material out there, and to get to a mindset or even a connection like this is like very rare, but at the same time, it's very abundant. So anyone can have access to their own mentor anytime.
What you just spoke about reminds me of, I try to be really active on LinkedIn, not so much to the point where like I'm a LinkedIn influencer, because I don't know, I get very nervous about posting posts on LinkedIn, but I do connect a lot with people and add people. And there was this one person that I connected with, and I'm always the kind of person that anytime I send a connection request, I add a little bit of a message.
Perfect.
And straight up, he messaged back and he was just like, hey, nice to meet you. How can I help you? And I loved it. I was like, wait, no one's ever asked me that before. And this was right at the beginning of coronavirus too. So we were straight up in lockdown. I was a very depressed student finishing up my spring semester, and we jumped on a quick phone call. And I think it was only about 30 minutes, but just the energy and positivity that he was exuding in that phone call, like, helped me move forward and just be like, I know I've been a little bit depressed lately, but wow, that was just about the interaction that I needed right now.
That's perfect. That's a perfect example. You just never know. And there's so many people that are willing to help you. You just have to ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Do you have any good mentorship stories, Wyatt?
I do. So John Sullivan was one of my main mentors. He's definitely like one of the most challenging like stakeholders that you could possibly ever have in your lifetime. It sucks that he's retiring because he was such a great teacher. In business, like you're going to come across people who are willing to help you. You're going to come across people who are like really reluctant to like even want to deal with you. And it's not necessarily a thing about you. It's just like they might be busy. They have 2 or 3 kids. We're all at home now. There's a lot of contributing factors, but really like breaking through those barriers and understanding the person and like getting them to talk with you and give you the harsh advice. And that was what John was. He would give me the harshest advice. So finding someone that's going to like challenge you and just be upfront and straight with you really benefits you, because there's so many people that will just like, oh yeah, you're fine, your resume looks fine, when in reality it might not. It might not be what a recruiter wants to see or is like looking for. And like having just a straight up conversation with someone is what I always strive for. Asking what identifying my own flaws, identifying my own strengths is a big thing that you need to do like self-reflection on. And also having someone having someone that's going to tell you those things, that they can notice that you from projects that you're working on with them, and like having that fluid conversation. And sometimes it's my main weakness is articulation. Like I have so much I want to say, so many great ideas or whatever it is, but sometimes I can't articulate that. That's something I work on every day. I present in meetings all day long, and once the material, it comes to you and flows to you. So really doing the research and understanding your analytics, it goes back to being very prepared for something, right? That really goes a long way.
Thank you so much for that. I think you touched a little bit on resumes, and here we have a very special Sarah Davidson, who can you explain a little bit like what an online candidate specialist does? I know we are a bit familiar more like with recruiters, but personally I hadn't heard of that job title before.
Yeah, so I screen resumes for finance. I'm part of GBOP. And so I screen different finance resumes. I just started 2 weeks ago, so I'm still learning as I go. But I would always say like my number one tip to always make sure like your resume is getting seen is just to make sure you're hitting those qualifications. I think a lot of times first hit the qualifications, and then secondly, always quantify your results. And this is outside my job as well, just because I don't know, I always love fixing up my resume and figuring out what to do, because when I first made my first resume, it was like 2 pages long. I put in like my height and my achievements. Yeah, don't do that. But when I say quantify, I always like to say a good rule of thumb is put 3 to 4 bullet points for every title, and really explain in each bullet point what you did, how you did it, and what the results were. So like, for example, let's say you led a team to help increase, let's say this, like you're a great team. That's very specific as possible, right? Say like led a team of 5 to increase sales by like 100% or 10%. Like give a number if you can. Even if you were like in a group project with 3 people, put that in, because I think the more detailed you are, the better this person who's looking at your resume is going to be able to really understand what you did. A lot of times I think we're really general with putting it in because we know what we did. So we'll just put it in like, oh, they obviously know like the work we put in. But if you don't give me a number, I don't know like what the results of that was, right? Like the work, the data, right? Like that's really important. So definitely make sure you're hitting them in qualifications. Use like the type of verbiage that's in your qualifications. That will definitely help. And then really quantify it. And then don't just put it in, like, let's say like a technical skill, like let's say you use SQL. So you say, oh, I put SQL in my skills. Like you actually put SQL in the bullet points. So it's showing that you're utilizing it, right? So those are different tips I like to say, but definitely keep it 1 page. I think that's just a lot easier. Unless you have loads of experience, you can go to 2. But again, there's no such thing as perfect resume. I really want you guys to keep that in mind. Like every resume is really subjected to whoever's screening. And yeah, maybe your resume will get, and someone just doesn't push it through, or maybe that same resume gets looked at by somebody else and they push it through. So please don't get so hung up on like, my resume isn't perfect, this is why I'm not getting the job, and really focus on getting the content down, the basis of it, and then doing the outside view with the networking part, getting your story told, really getting face to face with somebody.
Thank you. I have definitely seen some like 3-page resumes. Yeah. And then I try and work with that person to be, we gotta make it a little bit more concise. But you spoke about qualifications. Entry-level jobs, we see that they're asking for like 3 years experience, 4 years experience, 5 years experience. Brian, like, what do you think about just applying anyway? Do you have any opinions about that?
Yeah, I mean, Sarah said everything I wanted to say about it.
Yeah.
Got you, Brian and Wyatt.
Briefly touching on that, that was great advice. Yeah, just pull up the qualifications that you think you're, applicable for, and at what they're asking for, and how you can cater your resume to fit that mold. It's all a puzzle piece, right? And if anything, just really deep dive into the different project and thing that you've been doing, like I've discussed. Like if you're reaching out to different recruiters, right? That reached out to 20 recruiters, resulted in 10 messages, resulted in 2 phone screens to 1 on-site, right? That's something to keep track of that a lot of people don't think about. So I think that advice is great. What was the question again?
Lately, as I'm like going on a job search,
Yeah.
I've been noticing that even like entry level jobs will require about 5 years experience, 3 years experience, and that can seem like really intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit mixed, but I would say if your years aren't too far off, I think you should definitely strive and apply for it. One way to go around that is if, let's just say, a job is requiring 4 years and you have maybe like 2 to 3, you can always add relevant experience that you think, like different internships, projects, or shadows that you've done, or even a boot camp to add on to that experience. But another way is just reaching out to a recruiter or a sourcer within that company and letting them know that you're applying and asking them if you're a good fit. So I think that would just bring my attention, right? Some people do that to me, and I'm not going to disqualify just because you're missing 1 year, right? I'm going to see if like you presented yourself well, you connected with me, and you're very proactively searching. And I think that's going to push me over the edge. Like, okay, I think we should give you a shot. So just make it easy for the recruiter to actually bring you through the process if you think you're a good fit. Now, this is what I get all the time though. I'm currently hiring for product managers, and I'll get people that ask me something in regards to like, hey, can you give me like a engineering role or something like that? And I'm like, no, I'm hiring product managers, sorry. So just try to at least be in the same realm and industry for whatever that recruiter's looking for, and then ask away.
Absolutely, that's really good advice. I saw that you mentioned boot camps. A lot of students today are graduating and then heading into boot camps. Any opinions or suggestions on how to find reputable camps?
I don't have too much experience, but I definitely know that Google's your best friend. And you can, I've been on LinkedIn pretty often as well. And I think it's becoming the site for credibility as well. Like it's basically social proof, right? For professionals, right? For anyone that wants to put, you're putting so much info. And I just realized how important that tool is. Imagine you can search up like the CEO of any company, literally, and you can message them directly. It's kind of like Instagram, right? So I think that's powerful. So really figuring that out and that channel and finding what other people are saying about those boot camps. I personally went to Always Hired, a tech sales boot camp, but I know that there's others. And I plan to create one maybe in the future where I'm connecting and helping students bridge that gap for finding a job, because I know it's so tough for employers sometimes to take a chance on students right now with zero to little no experience, but we need that bridge, right? So hopefully we can do that for each other and build something new.
Absolutely. That's we'll be on the lookout for that boot camp, Brian. I am so excited for you. Let's see, I see the chat is also very poppin'. Thank you guys so much. We can get the Q&A session started now. I know there have been lots of good questions here that I really, really want us to get a chance to get to. So let me know if you would like to turn off your mic so you can just speak to our panelists, or I can also go ahead and read the questions. Would anyone like to speak their question? I'm gonna give it a couple seconds. Okay, I can take it over. I see that we have a question here from Ari. Question for Brian. Speaking of industry recruiters, what should you do if you cannot easily identify if they are the right industry recruiter on LinkedIn, for example?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so you can do a quick LinkedIn search for the company, and you can see the people that work within the company. And I think I should create a YouTube video for this, but I'll explain that later. And you can see on their profiles, and if you go to my profile, I specifically state that I'm looking for outbound product managers. And I'll state that on my headline as well. So you can definitely use that as a quick way. Also, if you want to navigate, you can ask the recruiter that you found, let's just say you stumbled upon me, but you wanted an internship, for example, you can always ask and say, do you know someone that can point me in the right direction? And if it's a no, it's a no. But if I do have someone, I'll point you in that direction, and you can try to follow that trail until you're in the right direction. I hope that helps.
Thanks for that, Brian.
Also, I was gonna say, like, with some LinkedIn's, like recruiters, sourcers, or RCs, like they'll actually put in their about me, like exactly like the field, the PA that they're in. It all depends. Sometimes you do have to do a little bit of stalking, but it definitely, I agree with Brian. I think like look through and ask, like definitely ask away. But again, when you're like reaching out to a recruiter or somebody, like definitely don't go with the intention of like, here's my resume, can you find something for me? Again, there's just thousands and thousands of applicants. Like that just doesn't help us narrow it down. So I think if you are going to reach out, you could put in like, hey, you know, here's my resume, I applied to this role, just wanted to introduce myself, or just wanted to chat, or anything in those ends, just to know that we know that you put in the work to find the role, if that makes sense.
Okay, here I have a question from Adrian. What if you're trying to transition from one job into a new job, different fields? How do you bridge the gap when you don't have the transferable skills and you just have a certification? Anyone? Oh, whoever wants to take this, go for it.
Well, I just want to say one thing. I think with so with this job itself, are they trying to say like they didn't learn any transferable skills? Because I think there's so many transferable skills from each job that you can really highlight during an interview. And if you are really trying to go into a different role, this is exactly what I would do. Like, let's say if I want to become a PM, I would start networking out to PMs, really like just chat with them, learn their story about how they went, and then ask them the question, hey, do you have any advice for someone who's trying to transition from, you know, from recruiting into PM? What advice would you maybe have? So learn from them. And then on the side, I would do maybe like maybe do like a volunteer work, or like put out my services, just so that I can gain that hard skill set into learning how to like get into that, or doing like a boot camp, because I think it's really important. Experience shows all. So if you can talk about it, that's really what's important. A certificate is good, but if you can't explain what you did with that certificate, it is going to be really hard to transfer. But I think it is doable. It's just how you highlight your words and how you highlight your experience on how this is transferable. Because definitely from going to recruiting to PM is very much doable. I've seen it happen, and it's just the way you highlight it.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, just start doing it. Like a lot of people, they want to be marketers, they want to be in sales, they want to be a product manager, right? Like do what the things that they do. And what are some of those things? Do some research, right? Everyone can actually start their own biz, right? In a sense, and just be very methodical in that process and be very disciplined and say, hey, I built this. This is why I should be a product manager, because I built this business from ground zero, and now I have 6 employees, and now I have 100K in revenue, and this is what I've been doing. And at that point, you can decide whether you want to be a product manager and work for a company, or fall in your.
Like just a little advice. Like currently, I'm trying. Like, you know, I'm a vendor, and I'm always like everyone's. If you're a vendor at Google, you're my biggest like thing that I've been doing is also like and what they do. Ask them if there's any like do rotation kind of thing. Like, are you working on a project that I can help work on this with? Like, show you my skills. You know, is there anything that like you work on that I would need to work on a daily basis? Like for my role currently, it's Salesforce, right? So I always point people like do the trailhead, like understand what Salesforce is, understand how like the ins and outs of how it works. You know, SQL, I use it every single day. Like, do you know how to use that? Like do some like self trainings, right, to understand those things. And you know, you built that experience. You're working your way towards it, and you can explain that in a job interview, especially if you find a job that, you know, on a team that you reached out to the product manager for, right? You're doing informationals, you're doing those coffee side chats, and like you're understanding what they need, what their pain points are, and how you can solve them. So it's not necessarily I'm not program manager yet, right? But like that's not what I do on a day-to-day, but I know exactly what a program manager, what it entails, what those, what those projects look like, and like the strategy. Like, are we working across cross-functional teams? Are we working with global teams? And how are we bringing those strategy and operations to be able to implement them? And like understanding that team, it helps you just like transition, right? Whether you're going from sales operations to sales, like understanding how it works and like what you need to do to be successful helps you to like grow always.
I love that. Thank you so much for adding that. Why I was also speaking to one of our previous panelists that we had from Adobe a couple of weeks ago, and as I was talking to her, one of the tips that she also was mentioning is don't discount the volunteer time that you do. Like that is those are valuable skills, and then it all could more way into making mistakes, because from a position organizations or other organizations within the Bay Area, wherever you're at, like can take on their social media marketing or their website managing. These are actually like really marketable skills. And if you're a little bit scared to do that at your job because you don't want to mess up, and that's actually like your job on the lifeline, in like these opportunities like this are absolutely incredible. So I did want to touch on that before we move on to some of our other questions. Thank you guys so much for your questions. I have a question over here. I believe Why is still in here? He may have lost connection. Okay.
Ooh, why?
Sorry, you moved in my screen. Okay, wonderful. I have a question from Regine. She asks, can you speak more about your experience and journey at San Francisco State?
Those questions for me? Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, of course. So I stayed in one building. I stayed in the business building my entire life at San Francisco State. And, everyone's like San Francisco State's a commuter school and you just leave. I made so many great friends. I have, at least 50 people that I've made connections with, that I've either made friends with or, still in some capacity, or like really relationships with your teachers. Like your teachers are very, distinguished they've done and what advice they can give you. I really took it upon myself to go to it goes back to Dr. John Sullivan, going to his office hours and pestering him all the time, getting him to know my face and being able to work through those relationship building skills. Just being a student is a great thing. People are full time at school. I had with hey, let's go to these office hours and learn this, let's do that, taking the time to be groups such as POW or other communities at school, that gets you connections for life. This I've never seen before, but this is probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. Being able to build a community where you're interconnected, working with people every day, those relationships will last you a lifetime. You're all going to go out and you're going to be successful in your respective expertise, or I don't know, whatever it's called. It goes back to that articulation. But you're going to make friends for life from college and career, especially when they see you working on a project, or they know that you're a go-getter and you want to go to the office hours and take that extra step on when you're working on a team. It really gets you to have those strong relationships at school. So don't be a loner, just put yourself out there.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so I have a question here from Lugil. From For anyone, so anyone can take this question. Do you believe that companies prefer students from universities / Ivy Leagues over Cal States or community colleges? How can we Cal State students stand out? Who wants to tackle this one first? Sarah, I saw you unmute yourself.
I just want to say, I didn't come from an Ivy League school. I went to CUC Santa Cruz, and it's a great school. Whole imposter syndrome. I think you need to get out of your head of we need to get out of our head. It's not what the school makes of you, it's what you make of it, right? Like going to UC Santa Cruz, if I kept in my head like, oh, I could never apply to this role or I could never do this, I would never be here. Like when I saw this Google, so basically how I found my role is I saw this Google Bold intern post it saying Google's looking for RCs. And the first thought in my head was like, oh, no way, Google's never gonna want me, right? But then after when that agency job fell through, I was like, let's just do it. And a month later, I landed the job. And so that's what I'm saying is don't have so much thought in your head like the school that you go to is the reason why you're not getting a job. It's the experiences. It's what you're doing inside. And again, it's write your story within your resume to really exemplify the experiences and how it relates to the job position and how you are the best candidate for this job. So I wouldn't worry too much about the school and more about like what you're actually doing and like the impact you're trying to make. So trust me when I say like Google hires all over. So it's going to be okay. I didn't come from Ivy League, but I'm still here.
Yeah, and just to quickly piggyback off that, I actually never thought I was Google, surprisingly. And so I never actually applied, believe it or not. But after I got some experience and some confidence, they actually reached out to me. And I was so baffled, like, wow, sure, let's try out the process, sure. And I just gave it my all, and I guess they loved me, so they decided to bring me on board. So I was kind of like taken aback, but I realized, you just got to have confidence in yourself, your abilities, and where you came from as well. So
I could not agree on that point anymore, Brian.
You too?
Yeah, man. Like I never thought like I was gonna work for a company like Google, like at any capacity. Like I thought I was gonna go into electrical sales and do something like that. Like I never thought, but I started working at Genentech. I got the taste of like big corporate world, and I was like, I got this. Like I was so nervous. Like when I was 18, like what am I gonna be? What school am I gonna go to? Who's gonna like me? Like I don't care. Like I don't care who likes me. Like someone's gonna like me, and like my personality is. You can ask Val. Like we used to be neighbors. Like I say what's on my mind. I am who I am, and like I'm unapologetic about it. And like that's what big companies love most. Like they want they want those changes. They want like I have the like mission statement. Like I will make waves, and like that like just gives you all the confidence you need.
100%. Well said.
And I just want to say too, like if it's not like you have this dream company, right? If you don't get it right out of college, that doesn't mean you're a failure. That just means it wasn't the right time at that very moment. So find a company where you're gaining that experience, because if it's not that dream job now, it's going to be that dream job later. So remember to give yourself like grace, because you are doing great and you are going to get to where you want to go. You just can't stop believing in yourself. As cheesy as that sounds, but surround yourself with supportive people, because from Brian and Wyatt and I's story, none of us thought we would be here. Like if you asked me a year ago where I would be, I would have never pictured this. So and it is going to work out.
Yeah, really quickly before we move on, that's so crazy. I just remembered I wanted to go into recruiting 4 years ago, and I got rejected from my dream company. And during that time, it was Aerotech. It was like the staffing company to be in. I'm not sure if you guys know that company, but they rejected me. I actually like shed some tears. I was really hard on that company alone. I'm not sure why, but I just heard so many good things. And, fast forward 4 years, like, I don't know, grace of God or just you actually putting out that vibe and just putting in the work and discipline, it just comes back to you. I'm a recruiter now, and for Google, right? So it's a blessing. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for all good advice. I'm gonna head over. I see Ting's question. She says, I'm looking for a job unrelated to my major. How can I get the job? I think we sort of touched on this a little bit. I think really like reaching out to people on LinkedIn, scheduling those coffee chats with them via Zoom, that is really, really pivotal to getting either to know like what that job entails, whether you're a good fit for that job, whether you even like doing that job. That's really important. And if that's a good match for you, if you feel that chemistry with that person and that person's just like, hey, you know what, I really appreciate this conversation that we had, let me put you in touch with this other person that can then tell you more or perhaps get you referred in. So I think that's really important about that. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
Couldn't agree more.
Sarah, I think I did that for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, you guys.
And I was like, you got to talk to Sarah.
So basically, how I'm here today is because Brian told Lugil about me, and now that's how I'm here speaking. So yeah, always passing it forward. Is that what we're talking about?
So thankful.
Yeah, just like just bring whoever you think can contribute, you know. And I felt like I had a call like a week before you reached out to me, Val, with Sarah, and then I was like, you need to talk to her.
Oh,
Great. And like, look, now we're all here. I love this.
Make this happen. We all made this happen.
Yeah. Okay. I have Janny's question. She says, hi, Sarah. After speaking / connecting with someone, what is the best time frame to reach back out again and maintain that relationship? What are some best tips to maintain strong work relationships?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would first, when I set up a coffee chat, I always just like try to feel the vibe of it, right? Like to see if we connect, because not every coffee chat you can connect, and that's totally fine. But when someone is saying like, you know, giving you advice and they're saying follow up with me, or, you know, I would always like to say follow up in like 3 weeks or like a month, or, you know, when I got this position, like I was networking for maybe like 3 months, I think 3+ months. And then when I got my new position, I messaged everyone who helped me just to let them know like, hey, I know it's been like a month or two, but I want to let you know I was able to land this new role. Thank you so much again for all your advice. And honestly, that truly means a lot to people because people love helping others. Like, you know, I always like to say to people, especially, you know, sometimes we get into our head of like, we don't want to reach out to someone because we don't know what we can offer them, right? My mentor told me this because I'm always just like, oh, what can I give to you? You give me so much, right? And she tells me that she's like, just pay it forward, Sarah. So always remember that, just pay it forward, and people want to talk to you. They want to help you. But yeah, I would follow up in 3 weeks or like a month, and then just like do monthly updates, or maybe 3 months updates. It's okay to reach back out 3 months later. People are always willing to restart the conversation.
Thank you so much. To piggyback off that, I think you mentioned as students, we're like, we don't know what value we can add to you. And today, I think I mentioned that I was talking to someone who works at Adobe. She's like a sales manager and she manages a big team. And I was just talking to her because I loved our Adobe panel, and I just wanted to like catch up with her, see what she was doing. And I know panel, she mentioned that she actually worked at the Brazil branch and she had just moved here back in January. So I figured, oh my goodness, she didn't get to live here that long before we went into like a shutdown. That's awful. So I just happened to mention this community that I'm part of, which is called Tequeria. And it's basically the largest Latinx in tech organization in the country. So I mentioned that because in the Slack channel, there is just about a channel for every Latin ethnicity there is. So I told her, hey, like, I know you may have not like gotten a chance to like really get to know a lot of people. So perhaps you can like find this avenue. She's just like, actually, yeah, I've been thinking about joining, but I didn't know how. So thank you. So it's kind of like I don't know, I felt like I was like, oh, yay, I added something. Thank you guys for your advice. Okay, so Nancy asked, which we sort of touched on a little bit, but let's see if anyone has anything else to add. So this is to all the recruiters. What's the best way to maintain strong connections with your recruiters and company referrals? Sometimes I worry I'm inundating them with questions or requesting advice. Any gestures you'd recommend or have appreciated from other talent? Brian?
Yeah, great question. I think about that one for a second, but I guess it goes back to maintaining that relationship and providing value, right? Um, if you're always asking, right, that's one-sided, but if you're providing value too, that's like a mutual, just like a relationship. And I think that's how, some people should treat it, like a business relationship. And if if the recruiter needs help on their end to find qualified candidates for their role, they want to help you as much as you want to help them in that regard. So if you can provide some referrals for their job that they think they're looking for, that you think they're looking for, they can help you out in your search as well. So it's a mutual beneficial thing like that. And sometimes I worry about another question. Yeah, don't feel like you're bugging them. They are pretty busy, so if they don't get back to you, try not to take it personally. Any gestures? Yeah, just make it easier for the recruiter on what you're looking for. Do the research ahead of time and just act like a professional in that sense. Mhm.
Thank you. Our next question is from Ye. This one is for can you share tips on how to articulate? Find myself to have the same problem where I have all these ideas and thoughts I want to share, but sometimes I don't know how to organize my thoughts when answering interview questions.
Question. Biggest thing, like what I do, you got to find something that, I literally did a bunch of Google searches, like how to organize your thoughts, how to articulate, like for everything. And so like when I'm preparing for a meeting, exactly, like drawing circles and like taking deep breaths. Like I do the you take a really deep breath for 5 seconds, you hold it in for 7 seconds, then you breathe out for about 8 seconds, and really helps you like just release. You do it 3 times over, and it helps you release all your things. You're like everything it helps you just a second. And once you have written like down your main points that you want to hit, like the biggest, it's sales operations. It's always like, how do we stay under budget on projects? And like, you got to hit those points because usually you only get 30 minutes. Most of the time it's like 15 minutes of like actual like work time, right? You're catching up, we're talking about other things, new deals, whatever it is, but you have to talk about, you have to hit strategic points. So like I write down everything that I want to hit, take my 3 big deep breaths, and then just go into the meeting with clear intentions of what I want to like portray, right? And especially when answering interview questions, keep that notebook. Like they're writing notes. Every interview that I've ever been in, the hiring manager, the recruiter, the panel, they're all taking notes on you. It's not a bad thing to bring say like, oh, it's weird to bring in notes and want to say, and being able to like be comfortable in the interview, like that means the most to me, right? And like scribble, definitely scribble, circles, just whatever to like distract you, right? But my problem is I like have that like ADHD or ADD, whatever it is, and like my mind just gets sidetracked. So just scribbling and just like you don't even need to. You're not writing anything. No one sees you. Like you don't see me scribbling right now, but I am. So just find what works for you.
Thank you. Has anyone ever brought notes in, Brian, into an interview?
Oh, for sure. I'm not sure who I learned that from, but it definitely shows that you're paying attention. You kind of stand out because not many people do that nowadays. So just take notes and just make sure you're answering the right question. I used to, going off what you said, Wyatt, like someone would ask me a question like what's the hardest thing you ever done, right? And let's just say it's a little bit more specific. I would just go off on a tangent, talk about everything but that, and forget what I was talking about. Like maybe I've done so over here, but just remembering like what questions being asked and how you're phrasing that question to be answered. So make sure you answer that question, because if you go off tangent too far, you need to bring yourself back. And I think that takes some practicing, either in front of a mirror, recording yourself, or through practice with a peer.
Yeah, lots of preparation.
Yeah, because they can knock you off for that. Like, okay, back to the question. Like,
mock interviews are so important. Sarah, did you want to say something too?
Yeah, I was gonna say, dang, Brian, you took everything out. With mock, I would definitely say record yourself, do it in front of a mirror, and then definitely with a friend. But also, I think it's okay with interviews. A lot of times we want to rush into it, right? Because if there's this awkward silence, it's like, oh, like that's weird. But it's okay if like you take some time, or this interviewer asks you a question and you're like, that's a great question, let me take some time to think. I think that's totally fine to really recoup in your head that memory, that situation. I always like to use the STAR method to really figure out what you want to tell them. Because as Brian's saying, it's really, really important to answer the question that is being asked. I know a lot of times we like to go into our full stories and we get off tangent, but really focus on it. And it's okay to take breaks, and it's okay to say to them, oh, would you mind explaining that question further in detail if you have trouble understanding what they're trying to ask? Because out of every question, you're going to understand the kind of skill sets and the stories that they're looking for. And please don't be general with it. Like, give a story. Like, in my past experience, I did this. I think a lot of times we want to say we're great leaders, or I'm a great organizer. Okay, that's awesome. But if you can't have a story to back it up with, like that evidence, how can I like trust your word on it? Like, I want to hear what you actually did to show me those skill sets. But interviewing takes time. I've done so many interviews, and even today I still get really nervous, but at the end of the day, every interview is going to prep you to become a better interviewee. So remember that, like, there's no such bad thing as doing more interviews. And if you have an off day, I always like to say, when I have a bad interview, I take that time to really reflect of what I could have said better, or take that time to really write down the questions the interviewer asked. So I'm really reflecting on, okay, maybe I wasn't as prepared, but for my next interview, how am I going to ace that? Because even on these best interviews you had, like, there's times where you still didn't get the job, but I always think it's really important to just keep on honing that skill set, right? But practice makes perfect is what I want to say.
yeah, and just to really, piggyback off that too, I know a lot of people are targeting like one specific company, so they won't even take the other interview. Like, oh, I don't really want that company, so I'm not going to interview. I think you should take all the interviews, because you just never know what you're going to get. And also those other interviews can help you prep for that one. So just take all the interviews.
Wait, actually, can I say a story to that, Brian?
Go ahead.
So actually, fun fact, I was, before I got my role, I was interviewing to become an RC at LinkedIn. And I completely bombed it. I was just so nervous, and I talked about sourcing, was not prepped at all, even though I thought I was. But that interview, the interviewers were so nice, gave me so much advice, and was like, hey, Sarah, this is kind of how we wish you said it. Don't take this as a personal attack. Take this as like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for giving me that advice. Because literally that same day was the day I got an email from Google saying, hey, Sarah, we wanted to interview you for the RC role. Like, no lie. The day that I messed up on my LinkedIn interview was the day that I had the Google email saying, let's interview on Monday. I didn't even prep, because the LinkedIn interviewers just gave me so much advice to think about, that when I did my Google interview, I just aced it, I guess. So thank you. Yeah. So every interview is a chance for you to learn something. So don't take it as a personal attack. Don't attack yourself of what could I have done to be better, but just like take it as a self-reflection, and then just keep honing yourself.
And just a little note on that, like, don't be afraid to ask the interviewer, like, for feedback. Like, with Genentech, I interviewed with Genentech 4 times before I got the role that I was working at, and each time Genentech takes it really personal to like reach out to you, give you a call, and like tell you like the feedback. We really like this. We really think like you could, improve your skills here. Like you didn't really show us X, Y, or Z in the interview. And like when you think back on it, it's like, yeah, I didn't. Like, okay, thank you. Like put that in my notes. I've got a whole bucket of notes from interviews and, what worked, what didn't work, like where I can improve on certain questions, and like always writing down the questions too. Like if you're on site writing down the questions, it could be like hard. Definitely take notes on like, quick notes on what the interviewers asked. And like after, because honestly, when I interview, I like black out. Like if I'm not breathing and I'm like not doing my scribbling or whatever I'm doing, like I black out. I could go out, I walk out, I'm like, what did I just say? Like what happened there? And like that's where I try to get better, right? Like did I seem like I was on a tangent? Yeah, probably because I was like blacked out. Like I had no idea what I was talking about at the moment. So like take the time to like really reflect and like ask their advice, like or their feedback on what worked, what didn't work for them.
I actually really love that, because I think I probably tend to do the same, where I will walk out of what I perceive as a stressful situation. I'm like, wait, what just happened? I don't remember.
I just blacked out.
I know. That's crazy. I think we all go through it. I'm
Definitely.
so nervous, like my hands are sweaty, everything's crazy. I'm like, what? What just happened?
Yeah, for sure.
Before we head into any more questions, just in case anyone has more questions, I did want to take a quick a picture before I forget, because I also have a little bit of ADD. So if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. Kim or Izzy, would you like to take the picture?
Yeah, I can go ahead and take it.
Awesome, thank you, Izzy.
So if you would like to be in it, I guess turn off your camera. I'll just take a quick screenshot. I'll count down. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're gonna have to do that again. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think we got it.
Thank you guys so much.
Cool.
Does anyone else have any questions you would like to ask our awesome panelists?
Have you guys had a situation where you got an offer from like your dream company, but it wasn't the right role for you? Sorry, this is so dark back here, y'all. I recently found myself in a position I don't really know what to do.
I'm kind of going through that right now. It's not what like I want to say it's not the role that I'm in. It's like the company that I'm working for as a vendor. I don't feel that I'm like I'm moving from Adecco, which is a great company, a great contracting company, to a company called WebHelp. It's a vendor company, and just the transition, like it didn't vibe well. Like I understood, like my manager shared like it's the same exact budget, and like I kind of took a pay hit. It happens, as you move into vendor. Like I'm a full-time employee now for that company, and like I didn't get a good sense that they had my best interest at heart and like provided me with the what I should be getting paid, right? And like that's totally okay. Like I know what I need to do to like get better, and like like on like finding a new role, or like it makes me that much more hungry to like find that FTE position, or another vendor role or whatever it may be. But having that value and knowing what you bring to the table, like it goes everywhere. Like it's your own values that you hold, right? Like what you're doing and like what you're bringing to the table, and like if you have increased work, whatever it might be, like always just like, no matter if it's your dream company or not, if you don't like the role, you don't like the role. You got an offer, like that's awesome. Like now you can get another offer for like the right role that you want. And if you don't like it if you don't mind it that much, you can definitely like take it, see where it goes, like 6 months, a year. Like adding that to your resume, like it might not be the worst thing that you could possibly do, right?
Definitely. I also want to add on, first off, congrats on the offer. I think Wyatt puts it really well with it's really hard, right? Like we have our dream company and then our dream position. I think you really need to think about what your passions are, right? Because if you're taking on a role that you know that you're going to hate, right? Let's say you're going into finance at your dream company, but you hate finance. Is the really the name of the company like going to be worth it for you? Because at the end of the day, like your job, you want your job to be it is part of your life, but you don't want it to feel like a job. So if you are taking it on a position that you hate, trust me, you're not going to enjoy it. And I think too, if it, like Wyatt was saying, if this company or this position has a chance to grow outside, because I've seen people move throughout within their company. If there's chances of growth, I would definitely look into that, because it could be an opportunity. Maybe like take it for a year, and learning those skill sets and networking within that company, your dream company, can get you to that dream position. Go for it. But if you don't really see that growth, like by talking to former employees, maybe it's not worth it, because at the end of the day, like you are not your company, you are yourself and like the value you bring. So if you're not loving what you're doing, I think it's just, you're not going to enjoy it. So I think I always like to say, like when candidates like come to me saying like, hey Sarah, like how did you get into Google? I always stop them, instead of Google, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about, right? Because you aren't the name of your company. So follow that. But definitely congrats on that. That's so exciting. Definitely know it's a lot to think about, but you're going to find your path, and talk to other people as well and professionals to get their advice.
Be unapologetically yourself.
Love that.
Yeah, for sure.
Go into that.
Thank you guys so much for that. Does anyone else have any last questions that you would like to ask our panelists? I'm going to wait for 1 more minute, and okay, I do have a question. I feel like I've been speaking to you guys this whole time, but I do have a question. So we talked a little bit about, you know, trying to network with people online and everything. Like this whole world is just like virtual now. What is the digital etiquette of going about reaching out to someone on LinkedIn and like making those little like coffee chats, because we can't actually go out for coffee anymore? Whoever wants to take that, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I get reached out for that from time to time, and I think we brushed up on it earlier. Just sending a message, hi, maybe something you've noticed about their profile, that you actually done some research into maybe their trajectory or something that they posted, and just relating back to that. Hey, that article you posted a week ago, I really liked that. I felt the same way about this and this, and I was wondering if we can maybe even catch up, because I am, you know, you are who you are, and you can basically introduce yourself to that person and just go from there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Okay, Sarah, do you want to add anything? Why do you guys want to add anything?
Just to how to network online.
Yeah, kind of like the digital etiquette. I know some people, I've seen some tips online, and they're like, add a little googly eyes to your webcam so that you're like actually looking at the screen, and not like, for example, I have 2 screens. So if you see me looking over here, I'm like reading at the stuff that's going on in the chat.
Oh, wait, sorry, just clarifying. Is it how to connect with someone to get to that coffee chat, or how to actually be present in the coffee chat?
Right, yeah, how to be present, how, is there like a unspoken like digital etiquette that one should follow?
Oh, I don't think there's like a digital etiquette, but one thing, when you're doing a coffee chat, please just be yourself. I've been in a lot of different coffee chats where I feel like some people saw this as an interview, and they're kind of just like interrogating me, or just like, here's some questions, and then like, okay, next, and then here's some more questions. Remember, it's a coffee chat. Like, I took this time out of my day, because I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are outside of your LinkedIn. So don't be scared to just be yourself, or you know, if this coffee chat leads into talking about like favorite foods or favorite places, that's totally fine. I don't think there's any etiquette, but just be you.
I completely agree with that, Sarah. There's there's a lot of like, I've been doing a lot of informationals lately, like within Google, and like the best way is just just be yourself. Just have a good conversation. Like, it doesn't need to be some crazy elaborate like multiple questions. Like, just understand their path. And like, I always bring up my dogs. Like, I always talk about my dogs and like, you know, what they mean to me, and like how I'm getting through this like COVID and like working from home. And like, I've got 2 Siberian Huskies, and they're like the coolest dogs ever. And like, I bring them up and insert that in every conversation just to like lighten the tension. Like, everyone's always got so much like tension. Like, they're, you know, they're trying to get work done. You know, I'm looking at 3 different screens. You know, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I got to go on a run. I got to do this. Like, just have a good conversation. Get to know someone. Like, maybe you make a friend. Maybe you make a longtime mentor. Maybe you meet your next boss. Like, you have no idea until you just go with it. Go with the flow.
I agree. And I just thought of something. I think sometimes we overthink it, and this coffee chat, we just think it's like something very like stiff and like, oh, what am I supposed to say? I think instead of that, we should phrase it like you're having a beer with someone. I know it sounds kind of weird, but what about that? Like, when you're having a brewski, like, everything is chill. There's no agenda. You're just talking away, and you're cool, right? Why don't we do that instead? Why don't we change it right now?
I'm down. We should put that in. I'll file a bug for that one.
Only if you're 21 plus, though. 21 plus. We are
non-alcoholics
non-alcoholics, sparkling times. I don't even know.
But I will say that Wyatt has amazing dogs. They are the best.
Oh my gosh, I love dogs. But I think also one quick thing too, this really goes back to interviewing. A lot of times we get really nervous, and it's totally understandable that we want to show our professional side, but don't forget your personality. Like, I remember I watched so many YouTube videos and had such a script in my head, and I had an interviewer stop me and said, "You are too scripted." Like, no joke. And I just, what?
Like, just take a deep breath.
Yeah, no, she was just like, "You're so scripted." But I still like how confident you are, even though after she said that, I was like, "Oh, wait, what?" And I realized I forgot my personality, because, you know, when people hire, they want to hire with people they like, people that they see themselves working with. So remember to blend in your professionality, but also your personality. And if they don't like your personality, they aren't the right fit for you. You're going to find a team that is. So just trust in the process, but more importantly, trust in yourself, because you are going to find the right fit.
Speaking of dogs.
Wait, you have another one though. How many dogs do you have?
And there's 2 dogs in here. Earlier when Sarah was in the she got here early, and so we were having a little bit of an introduction, and there was like something moving in the background. She's like, "Wait, what is that?" And she met my other dog, so that was really cute.
Wow, that's a good starter. If you put your dog up, that person's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, tell me more."
They're so comfortable right off the bat. So actually, good tip, guys. Add your dog.
Yeah.
I've actually also had like instructors do that. They like bring their dogs now that we're all home.
Oh, so cute.
Not a bad tip. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of your insight and wisdom and what it's like navigating post-grad life. This has been really great, guys. Tune into more of our events. Let us know.
Sorry, I know you're closing, but I have one little announcement for after. Just don't want to end the meeting, so you can finish.
Go for it, Izzy.
Okay. I just kind of wanted to bring back up, we were talking about skills on your resume, making yourself, I don't know, seem like just putting more on your resume. So what we're doing in POW is we're having like a little mentorship program type thing, just to kind of put more skills on your resume. I think it'd be really helpful. I just sent a link in the forum for students. Just fill it out if any of it seems interesting to you. A lot of our positions, I feel like what Bao was saying, we learn a lot of really valuable things being in POW, being in student orgs, putting on events, talking to people. And I think you could gain a lot of new skills by kind of being mentored by us. we're a cool group. So if you're interested, please fill that out. And Val, you can take over.
Yeah, I will just add a little bit to that. When I first started jumping onto calls with like recruiters or potential speakers, I was shaking, and I was hoping that the people on the other end would not be able to tell, and they just thought it was like maybe like bad like Wi-Fi connection. But yeah, I learned how to pitch, and I learned how to talk to people that I may have thought were intimidating. And I can tell you, like Sarah, Brian, Wyatt, you guys are so chill, and I would definitely grab a beer with you guys. So,
We grabbed many beers together, Val.
yes, we have.
It's like you're next door.
That was just also very serendipitous, so it worked out really well. Thank you so much, Wyatt, for sharing your time with us, and Brian and Sarah, I loved it. Guys, if you enjoyed this conversation, also let our panelists know by connecting with them on LinkedIn. I'm sure they would love to hear from you. With that, I will close today. If anyone has any other last words, feel free to say them now or forever hold your peace.
Oh, thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Thank you, Val, for moderating. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wyatt and Sarah. Amazing.
Great to meet you all. Val, you did an amazing job. I'm glad I got to see your presentation skills firsthand. Brian, Sarah, hope we can connect on LinkedIn and further the conversation.
Yes, I'm definitely down. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me, and thank you so much for these wonderful conversations. I love talking about this just because I always like to say, pass the knowledge forward, because these are events that I wish I went to when I was still in school. So definitely know that you guys are one step ahead.
Yeah, you guys are. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll connect.
Everyone add me on LinkedIn.
Add Wyatt now.
Thank you so
Add
much.
me now.
Yeah, I think we also had a Google Sheets that Lugal created in case you want to add any of the people that attended the event today. So for sure.
Yes, please add us and send a personalized. This is a actually action item. I want you guys to send a personalized invite. This is really important if you want to connect with someone that you don't know. Is just let us know where you found us, if you attended POW, and like one fun thing that you got, one key thing that you took away from it, and then I'll accept.
Absolutely. And once again, Izzy did include, in case you want to be mentored by any of us or you're interested in a POW officer position, for sure, reach out to us. We would love any sort of help. Okay. With that, we will end the session. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.